Hey everyone, RJ here. Welcome back to the channel, and today I'll be doing my long-term review of the Google Pixel 3a XL. Alright, so the Pixel 3a XL came out in May of 2019, so this phone's going on 3 years old, and today I'm just going to give my personal opinions on this phone and if you should still buy this phone here in 2022. This phone has held up very good. It was actually my very first Pixel phone. So the first thing that we're going to look at right now is taking a look back at the specs to show you what we got here 3 years ago. So we're going to start off with the display. Now this phone had a 6-inch 1080p by 2160 display. It was an OLED display with 18:9 ratio with 402 pixels per inch. Now the front screen was Dragon Trail. Okay, now the back was made of plastic and the frame was made of plastic as well. Now this thing ran the Qualcomm Snapdragon 670 processor with an Adreno 615 GPU, which in my opinion was considered mid-range back in 2019. Of course, you know, that processor's getting pretty old now and outdated, but it still does pretty good, you know. Now this phone does have 4 gigabytes of RAM and 64 gigabytes of storage, and I think that was the only configuration you could get with a 3A or 3A XL. And of course, no micro SD card expansion. Now it does have that single 12 megapixel camera there on the rear. It was a wide angle lens with aperture of f1.8. Of course, that optical image stabilization, and you can record at 4K at 30 frames, 1080p at 30 and 60 frames. The front camera was an 8 megapixel wide angle lens with aperture of f2.0 and could record at 1080p at 30 frames per second. This phone had a 3700 milliamp hour battery. That's for the XL model. Not really sure what the original 3A had, but for the XL, it was a 3700 milliamp battery with 18 watt quick charge. And some other things was that Bluetooth 5.0, rear mounted fingerprint scanner, stereo speakers, all that kind of good stuff. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at the phone here. Turn on the display, and this display looks really good. Okay, the AMOLED panel had nice deep colors. This is a 60 Hz display on this phone, and you can see the bezels there on top and the bottom. They were a bit thick on the phone, but honestly, 2019 phone, and that's not much of an issue anyway to me personally. Now, for the processor being the 670, you know, it's still holding up pretty good. You know, I mean, for scrolling speeds, of course, this ain't really showing anything, you know, really graphic intense, but I mean, it still works, and still works very well. I mean, yeah, I mean, very few stutters, very few issues. You know, this is my very first Pixel phone, and I had my SIM card in this phone for a solid year, which is the longest I've ever had my main SIM card in any phone. But this phone was flawless, in my personal opinion, and I don't really think there was really many people that had issues with the 3A series of phones. From best of my remembrance, I had no issues, no problems with this phone. It just worked, and it worked very well. Had really good reception, had really good call quality. Battery was really good. It just worked. Okay, stereo speakers, they sounded good, but they just didn't put out, you know, like, when, especially, you know, when it got to this phone, I thought, man, these speakers are loud, they sound great. But when you hear phones now compared to this, these sound pretty quiet compared to some of the newer phones, but they still sound good, they still sound clear, and you'll have no problem hearing it. Now, of course, you can see it does run Android version 12. You know, it has that same everything there and everything, you know, of course, everything here. You know, with the 64 gigabytes of storage, you know, you run out pretty quick on this phone. It'd be nice if they would actually, you know, start putting SD cards available for these phones, but we know they never will. But you know, this phone, I mean, there's not much to say about it. I mean, it's just your average Pixel phone that works. I mean, that rear camera, being a single rear camera, I mean, it takes really good photos, takes decent video. I mean, not the best, but it takes decent video. But the pictures, man, the pictures I took with this phone back in the day, I mean, it took some fantastic photos. The night sight on here was just awesome. I thought that was so cool when this phone came out and everything. And, looking here at the camera, camera shortcuts, all that stuff or whatever, it was just a basic layout. And, honestly, portrait was really good. Camera was really good. Video. We're going to verify that what I told you about the camera specs was correct. So, of course, you got 1080p at 30 and 60 frames per second, but in 4K you was limited to 30 frames, which really 4K 64 gigabytes of storage, yeah, that wouldn't have worked out very well. So yeah, I mean, it just had your slow motion, time lapse. You had your modes, different modes here, just you see on a lot of Pixel phones now. But you can see right there that honestly, it just works, and it's smooth. The transitions are really good whenever you're going, from this, that to the other. Now, we're going to see how gaming works. And I only, use one game. That's Asphalt 9. So I'm going to go ahead and load that up right now, and we'll see how it does. Okay, so Asphalt 9 loaded up. Now, of course, like I said, it's showing its age. The processor being a 670. Takes a little bit to start up. Sometimes going through the menu sections, it is a bit jittery here and there. But we'll see how the game plays. Now, this is on default. I didn't set it up for no high performance or high quality. This is just default setting. Getting on here and playing. So, looking at the load times here, about, it's doing okay, I guess, But we're going to look for the drop frames and stuff like that, if there's any. And so, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so starting off here, looking fine. And all these graphics and everything, honestly, it's doing pretty good. Not really seeing any drop frames, not really seeing any kind of jitters or hiccups. Yep. Man, this thing, I mean, this 670 was pretty powerful when it came out. It was a nice little processor. But you're seeing right there, really, that this game is playing just fine on default settings. All that motion right there, and it's just, yeah, no stutters whatsoever. It's doing very well. And speaking of performance, I went ahead and pulled up Geekbench 5. Sorry for the lines going through the screen there. That's just the camera lens. But you see a score of 341 single core and 1232 multi-core. Of course, a little bit low, but hey, there's phones out there now that are brand new, came out this year, that are scoring lower than this, and probably has near the same price tag as this phone right now. So, I mean, the scores don't look very impressive, but the scores ain't everything. I mean, you've seen the gaming. Gaming does fine. Your everyday task of Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, whatever you want to do, watching movies, whatever the case may be, it's going to do just fine. Okay, I'm not sure what the going price of this phone actually is right now. I've not done any kind of research to find out what they cost. I know that some of these Pixel phones are actually going up in price. Instead of coming down in price, especially if they're coming from, private sellers, or, if you get on eBay and places like that. A lot of brand new ones are actually selling for quite a bit of money. So, shop around, of course, if you're looking for a Pixel 3 AXL. So do I think that it's worth picking up? Well, that's kind of, it's one of those things where it's a great phone. It works good. I don't think it's going to get any more updates. I don't think. Android 12, I think it came out with Android version 9, if I ain't mistaken. So I doubt it'll get any more system updates. It should get one more year of security patches, but I may be completely wrong about that. I have no idea. But overall, if you want to buy this phone, and if you are just really got to have a 3A or 3A XL, then I still say that for, just your average usage, some games, everything else, I mean, it's going to work. It's going to work fine. Cameras still perform very well, or camera, should I say, still performs very well. Fingerprint scanner, it is a little bit slow. You see right here, I can push it now, and it now comes on. But while it's a little bit slow, it works 100% of the time with no issues. So, I recommend the Pixel 3a or 3A XL in 2022, I can say yeah. I can say that I can still recommend buying this phone if you can get it for a good enough price. I wouldn't overpay for this thing. I just wouldn't, okay? But if you want a phone that's going to still perform decently well, if you can get it for a good price, get it unlocked, maybe get it unlocked for all carriers or something like that, that would even be better. But if you want a phone that's going to work and it's still working pretty good here 3 years after its release, 3A XL is going to do okay. But it's all up to you, just my personal opinion. So this is my final review of the Pixel 3A XL 3 years after receiving this phone. So if it's helpful informative in any way, hit that like button. Any questions you may have, leave it down below. If you're new around here, consider subscribing and clicking that bell on to get all notifications of future videos like this and others that are coming up soon. That would be appreciated. Y'all have a good one, and thanks for watching.